Good afternoon, one and all. Thank you for joining us. My name is Minister Francine Christian Williams, the founder and director of Wise Women Worshiping. We would like to introduce to you today our sister, Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. She is the author of Wounds of Wisdom. It is a phenomenal book, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. She's a multi talented entrepreneur and proprietor of Dr. Monica Y. Jackson Educational Consulting and Design Services. She's been a professor and former host of the Journey Talk radio show. She is known for keeping it real, encouraging, and empowering. So at this time, I'm going to turn over to you, Dr. Monica Y. Jackson.
Thank you, Minister Francine. I thank you so much for the opportunity to share with Wise Women Worshiping. And we're just going to jump right in. As you stated, I am Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. I always tell everybody, put that Y in there. And the reason why, because I have a PTSD story behind that Y. I'm not going to share it right now, but if you've heard me in the past, you'll know why I keep that Y in there. But I am the unapologetically authentic encourager. My message, mission, and movement is to unsilence the silence and give individuals courage to give themselves permission to heal from debilitating, hurt. Did you understand what I said? I said permission. Sometimes we don't know that we can heal, that there are options. I know when I speak many times, there are people who don't know that they have choices and options. For some of us, we make the assumption and we think that people know, or we think they should know because of how long they've been walking with the Lord, maybe because of their age, maybe who they associate with, but it's not always true. So first of all, we have to be careful with our assumptions. Before I actually get into why I wrote this book and some of the things in this book, I want to read the first paragraph of the prologue in my book. Life's wounds are painful. Surviving them is a blessing when you learn to release the pain and use those experiences to help others, which is the purpose of this book. People look at where you are today, decide to dislike you. They erroneously conclude that your life is a bed of roses. They covet what you have, gossip about conclusions they've drawn about you without any proof or valuable interaction, and they feel totally justified. They want what you have and who you have. They fail to realize that you've worked decades and survived great trials and tribulations to reach where you are today. They want your glory, but may not be able to withstand your story or the wounds you sustained. So that's the first paragraph in my book. The reason I wrote this book, I want to first say that this book actually wrote me. And I will share how the book wrote me. I'm going to share how I wrote the book and then how the book wrote me. January 29th of 2021, during the pandemic, like many people, I lost my major contract, my six-figure contract. Single parent, own my own home, have all my bills and expenses like everybody else, and lost all the contracts. The reason that was given to me was because I'm not meeting expectations. Anybody who knows me know that I operate to the best of my ability in excellence. If I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not going to pretend. I'm going to tell you I don't know, and I'm going to keep you informed. So I knew that there was something else behind that. What I caution people is that sometimes you just have to keep it real because it's your character and your integrity that becomes questionable. So, as opposed to this manager attacking my credentials and my work, she didn't owe me any explanation. She could have just said, we're letting you go. Or the company needs to reduce workforce, period. But to attack my character, to attack my work, was really disheartening. It said a lot about her than anything else. How many of you have been in environments where you have operated a certain way because you were representing an institution or organization? But it can taint your character. So 2 days later, following this contract loss, I had about 4 or 5, and they all I started losing them. So when I lost the last one, January 30th, 3 a.m. in the morning, I just literally got up and went to my computer and started writing. For the next 7 days, 8 to 10 hours, I was at the computer, not getting dressed, just feel like things were just flowing. There was a release. So this book was actually written in 7 days, about 70 hours worth of work. The book also contains 7 chapters: friends' wounds, workplace wounds, family wounds, church wounds, marriage and divorce wounds, business wounds, and finally, children's wounds. So, did you catch what I said? I wrote the book in 7 days. There were 7 chapters. I wrote the book as I felt was given to me. I just wrote it. When I finished it, I did not know that it was supposed to be a book. All I know is that the weight and whatever I was carrying had been released. I no longer felt this burden. I no longer felt this debilitating hurt that I had endured. It was an instant release as I was writing. And if you ever think about someone who regurgitates, when you regurgitate, it just flows. You can't stop it. It just continues. So this is what was happening to me for 7 days straight. So at the conclusion of those 7 days, I journal by nature. One of the ways that I release things is to write it in my journal. And the reason why is because I'm not going to bed worrying about the things that I can't change. I journal. So if things are bothering me, I literally keep my journal next to my bed. That's how I release it. Because Dr. Monica needs her beauty sleep. She needs to sleep. She doesn't want anything interrupting it. She wants her peace. And the way for me to get peace is to release it. So after I finished writing this and I saw this, I read it. I was like, wow, this is powerful. I did not consult my journals except for dates, looking for a sequence of events. I only moved 1 chapter around in the book. I sent this to 4 different people. 2 people knew me and 2 people did not. The overwhelming response was just amazing. And for someone I had met only maybe a week or so, and there was just a connection between she and I. And she just said the book was just powerful. Well, the manuscript at that time. She said, you must publish this book. So I want to read what she said. She said, absolutely, absolutely riveting. A well-written book about very difficult subjects. Monica captures a means of sharing very painful experiences. It is empowering. At times, I was afraid for her. I saw a transformation from fearful to fearless. Women do not share enough truth, emphasis on truth. This book shares total transparency. And I was like, wow, how does this person who doesn't even know me get all of this from this? How did she see that this was truth? She told me she felt it. She could feel what I was feeling. She said she felt my hurt. She felt the pain. She felt the fearless. She said, you have to share this. So I was not going to do anything with it. So a week, I'm going to say maybe a few days, no, it wasn't, I think maybe a couple of days after that, a pastor called me and said, because he knows some of the things I have gone through that I talk about in the book, he says, I'm not calling you to say that this is a prophetic word because I know how you feel about people in their propheticness, so to speak. He said that you got to finish that book. And I said, okay. Well, when I talk about church wounds, I speak about 5 specific churches. And I'm sitting here like, does he know I'm going to talk about his church too? Does he really want me to publish this book? Now, I don't mention names. I don't mention churches. However, if you attend or have done any of these things or been involved, you'll know. So it was totally edited. It was all done. I think he called me on a he called me on a Saturday, I think it was. So that Monday morning, I literally pushed the button and sent it to the printer to be printed. So one of the things that I feel when I speak, I'm always concerned. I'm concerned about my audience. I'm concerned about how they will receive the things that I say. I'm more concerned about the judgmentalness of it. If you have not walked my walk or experienced what I've experienced, it's just an opinion. And many times it can come across as judgmental. The reason why some people don't speak up is because they are judged. When we are going through wounds of life, when we're hurting, when we are just broken, a lot of times we're not looking for someone to pray for us. A lot of times we're not looking for a scripture to be quoted. We're looking for someone that can relate to us in the natural before they go into the spiritual. Because that natural is showing your ability to relate and you being authentic. When you interject the spiritual part of it before this, then it can make somebody apprehensive. Why? Because if you're angry, we're often told, well, you shouldn't be angry. But these are normal, regular human emotions. Some people cannot speak up and they harm others because they can't speak up. And if you aren't able to speak up, it's going to come out some other way. We see all these things in society that is happening. Suicides, mass shootings, all sorts of things. Why are these happening? Why have they happened? Because someone couldn't speak. Someone could not relate to them. Someone didn't feel comfortable in sharing. If they're shared, maybe they were ostracized. Maybe they were put down. Maybe they were told not to feel that way or think that way. Or they were told, just pray about it. Or God is in control. He has it. Now, I'm not discrediting anything about prayer or God being in control. However, God gave us this thing up here that some of us don't use. Some of us use too much. And I fall in that category, overthinking. And we start to question things. So I would speak about the things that I was going through. I spoke about them because I will tell you that silence kills, speaking heals. I know that many times when I was going through situations, close friends would tell me, oh, don't talk about it, just talk to God. I need relation. I need to relate to people. I need someone to hear me, not for them to solve my problems, but to hear. So, what that was telling me is that they weren't willing to listen, they weren't willing to hear. As I said, sometimes we need to be in the natural, and sometimes we can be too holy that people can't relate to us, and you're unable to relate to others. And I experienced that. I experienced that on so many occasions. I was even told in the process that, I hope God takes that anger from you. I don't know that I was angry as much as I was hurt. So when someone says even that statement, it's almost judgmental, like, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Are we supposed to walk around with a happy face all the time? And I know some people think, you speak things and you speak it into existence and name it and claim it, believe it and receive it. But what happens when you don't receive it? I talk about a lot of those things in my book. The places that I felt that should bring solace, peace, comfort, and joy should be our church and our families. However, I found those were the number 1 and 2 things that wounded me to my core. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about when your pastor wounds you. Nobody wants to talk about holding the pastor accountable for the woundedness. And so when you talk about these things, depending on your audience, it's going to be received differently. You're either going to stand with the wrong or stand with the right. And I saw that. I saw the division so much. It made me question things. It made me question not God, but the entity of religion, the entity of the church. I reached out to people asking for prayer, telling them I'm struggling. I got so many statements such as, well, you know what? Make an appointment with me, because I charge to pray. I was like, what? Then I reached out to someone else, with that I felt that I respected, that was a person of God. I just needed to talk. I needed to release my pain just to talk. And again, money came up again. Just for me to talk. So here I am, supposedly a part of the body. But am I really part of the body? Whose body am I really part of? And if I can't go to a brother or sister in Christ when I'm hurting, then what? Then I question, do I want to be a part of this body? And if I am a part of this body, and this is how I'm treated, how are we treating people who are not part of the body? How are we able to impact? What is our influence on people who don't think like we think, who don't believe like we believe? Those 2 things made me retreat. They made me retreat, but it made me retreat to the point where I felt like it was just me. Nobody wanted to hear my struggles. Nobody wanted to listen, but I was there and I listened for others. So it was me and God. There was a situation in the church with my child, my only child, that wounded me to my core. I mean, felt like I was going to leave this earth. For 7 days, I was in physical pain from head to toe. I was in emotional pain. I was in spiritual pain, and there was no one coming to my rescue. People who I thought were friends were not there. I called and I received, maybe days later, a text, "I'm praying for you." To this day, no follow-up, no response. Are we so busy or too busy to relate to people? Are we too busy? Do we care about others? Do we genuinely care about others? Some of the things that I received, I was told, well, people have good intentions. I said, no, they don't. People say, well, people are busy. I said, no, they're not. I said those things because people always make time for what's important and who's important to them. When you have someone who's in need and hurting, and if you're unable to discern that, there's something wrong. I question a lot. So right now I'm in a place where I'm in a place of questioning. I question so much that I have to question myself sometimes. God, am I hearing you? Lord, am I hearing you? Why am I not hearing you? I realize that I have been hearing God for a long time. Just haven't been hearing the way that I was told or taught I was going to hear him. So these experiences allowed me to find out who God really was, who God wasn't, who Dr. Monica was, and who Dr. Monica wasn't. It was a painful time, but it was a necessary time. It was painful because the betrayal from family, the betrayal from church, the betrayal from workplace, in many places, were unimaginable. Unimaginable. You know, the word says when somebody does you wrong, you go to that person. I went to my pastor about the situation with my only child. And that pastor said to me, "Oh, you're out of line. You know, well, how about we just allow this to happen? And if this doesn't work, then we just be there for them. I'm not going to give away what's in the book. You have to read it." I said, "Pastor, with all due respect, this is not something you play with. This is not something that you test and see. This is something you prepare for. And if there's a concern, there's a concern." I left that meeting with the pastor and I said to him, "Let your wife know that I'm going to be talking to her as well." So I reached out to her. We met. And the things that she said, Miss First Lady said, "Whether you want this to happen or not, I know what I have to do." And we're talking about my child. And you gonna tell me, because I'm concerned about my child, that you know what you have to do to make what you want to happen. Then she said, "Well, you know what? I believe everything everybody said about you." I'm sitting here like, does she really think that I care what others think? And so I'm sitting here with her and I said, "Well, what are other people saying about me? I didn't go to anybody else. I came to her and I found out exactly about who she was and who her husband was. Not because of something someone else said, but my interactions." So then let's talk about prophetic words. Another church. I have a real difficult time with people delivering the prophetic words. Why? Because not one person I've met that's said or spoken a prophetic word is manifested. Only one person I know, partial manifestation. So partial is either it is or it's not. So you figure that out. I'm not saying people don't have the prophetic words, but can't God speak to me the same way that he can speak to someone else? Why does he have to speak to someone else? So we have to be careful. When God speaks and you know that he's spoken and you have a message for someone, make sure you ask God to prepare that person to receive it. A lot of times what I feel is that a lot of people interject their own beliefs, their own thoughts, their own experiences into messages to get other people to believe what they believe. At least that's what I experienced. I grew up in church all my life. And I think I probably may have not attended maybe a year or so. And I did not see examples of people living the word. I didn't see it. I actually saw the opposite. It was disheartening. And, I know a lot of people say, well, don't look at people. Well, but we're part of the body. We're a body. If one part of the body hurts, then everybody else hurts, or supposedly. I don't see that. As I continue to speak about these things, some people will receive it, some people won't. Some people will flat out reject it. Some will become defensive. But again, if you have an experience with someone else's experience, you cannot reject their feelings. You can't tell them how to feel, how they should have responded. Let your walk and your talk be the example for them. In time, they will heal. Because your actions can actually hurt people and harm them even more so. Even more. One of the ways that I describe myself prior to writing this book is, I was always pretty much authentic. However, I was always concerned. I'm outspoken. I speak my mind. And, when someone tells you, oh, don't say that, or don't speak like that, or, don't say it that way. What am I supposed to do? Say it the way they think I should say it? We're all unique. But I feel that too many people want us all to be the same, think the same, believe the same, walk the same, even when it comes to understanding the word of God. Some of us take a lot longer to understand. Some of us interpret it differently. Right or wrong? Who really knows? Emphasis on no. We know what we believe, but what do we really actually know? For some of us, we don't know. We're still in the process of learning. I know for me, my knowing is my experiences with God outside, not what someone has taught me and told me. That's not my experience. And so when you become so committed to your beliefs, your institutions, you can push people away instead of drawing them near. And I don't think a lot of people understand and see that. Bottom line is we're supposed to love. And there's so many actions and things that we do. It's not loving. There's no love in it. One of the things I try to encourage people to do is love yourself enough to love yourself. A lot of us were not taught to love ourselves. We're taught to give to everybody else, put other things first. But if I don't know how to love myself first, I can't love anyone else. And when you love yourself unconditionally, totally, authentically, and you know what that feels like, you're going to reject anything that doesn't feel like love for you. I think the number one thing we should be teaching people is how to love themselves first. First. A lot of the hurts and pains that we go through probably wouldn't happen if we knew how to love ourselves first. We're taught from birth how we should be, how we should develop in life, how go to school, get married, go to college, live happily ever after. What happens when the happily ever after doesn't occur? What happens? Well, God hates divorce. So some of us stay in marriages longer than we should have. But it also says what God is joined together, let nothing separate. So to take the embarrassment off of me, I had to say, well, you know what? I'm the one who did the joining. That wasn't God's doing. So if I did the joining, then I can get out. Let me make a disclaimer. These are Dr. Monica's views, Dr. Monica's opinions, and from Dr. Monica's experiences. There's so many people who are walking around hurting in marriages. Did God bring them together? Did God want them to suffer? I met a woman who said she was in a marriage for over 30 years, being sexually abused by her husband. She didn't know that she was being sexually abused. 30 years. Going to people, going to friends, speaking, and they're told just keep quiet. As I said earlier, silence kills, speaking heals. When we speak up, we find that there are other people who've gone through the same things that we have, experienced the things that we have. If you keep silent, you will never know that. Never know it. So in my journey of talking about my church wounds, my friends' wounds, marriage wounds, workplace wounds, children wounds, I have discovered that there's more in common than uncommon. Some of the things that I hear is you have written about things that everybody, I'm gonna say everybody, people think they're just not bold enough to speak it. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice but to speak it. And the reason why is because, as I mentioned earlier, I was going through so much physical, emotional pain for 7 days. I was in the bed during this situation with my child. And I said on the 7th day, I said, Lord, if you don't get me out of this bed today, I'm going to die. I physically felt I was dying. I know what people mean when they say people have died from a heartbreak. I know what that feels like. When I said that, I instantly felt a nudge that pushed me out of the bed, literally. When I got out of that bed that day, I chose never again to allow anything or anyone to take me to that depth of despair, pain, hurt. I felt like I was grieving. I literally went through the stages of grieving. That's a horrible feeling to go through the stages of grieving for somebody who's still physically alive and healthy. Then to be ostracized, literally, get a letter from your pastor say, don't come back to church no more. Why? Because you're asking questions. You're questioning the pastor. You're asking things that are incorrect. You're raising questions, not with anyone else, but directly with the pastor. But when you are exposing things and exposing people and situations, that's when the resistance would come. Wise women worshiping. When there's resistance, look at what You can learn from that. There is wisdom in every wound. So when we're wounded, let's look for the wisdom in that. I know one of the things I did not do is I didn't trust my gut or my instinct. I didn't trust my gut and my instinct because Dr. Monica, you're too direct. Dr. Monica, you're too harsh. No, I'm just truthful. I am truthful, but I'm also receptive. And a lot of times people aren't open to critically thinking. I talk about friends' wounds in this chapter. Petty things to lose friendships over. I had just some strange things. I'm seeing people more of being immature in so many ways. They're not able to be mature and they think they're mature. This is the sad part of it. When you have a problem, you should be able to go to someone. You should be able to go to someone and explain to them, have them explain to you what they did or you did. But when you've made the decision to walk away from a friendship and never allowed the dialogue to occur, there's usually something else going on. I've experienced this more than once and very recently over petty things. Well, you said something to hurt my feelings. Well, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. But here, did you come to me and tell me what I said to you to hurt you? We're not walking in the same direction in life. Well, we shouldn't be. So I don't want to be friends with you. We shouldn't be. Well, you didn't appreciate something I gave you. I said thank you. Again, the pettiness. I hope we can mature as a people, person. One of the things I say in the book, I want you to walk away. Whatever you have to do is be at peace with yourself. I talk about self a lot. You know, a lot of times we are, told to be humble. And we should be proud of our accomplishments. We should be proud of the talents God's given us. But sometimes when we're told to be humble, a lot of times it makes you feel uncomfortable with what you're saying and what you're doing. And it's not that you're being arrogant about it. You're just proud of yourself, and you should be proud of yourself to love yourself. I know for me, a lot of times, you have to suppress your credentials sometimes. I am 90 some percent estranged from my family because of an incident in the church, because the family don't want to deal with it. But when God shows you things that are going to happen 6 months prior and they happen, now people are embarrassed. We have to learn to put our pride aside in men relations. But some things just hurt so bad. And it is a choice to wallow in that pain or to get up and move. No, it's not easy. But again, if it becomes debilitating, you have to choose to release that pain. So, one of the things I say in my book related to being estranged from family, walking away from institutions, choosing Dr. Monica over anything else, because that's all Dr. Monica has, is I wake up to this quote every single day. My peace. People don't realize that you can forgive them without speaking to them again. It's not a grudge, it's peace of mind. I encourage you, guard your peace of mind, guard your heart, love yourself enough to love yourself, give yourself permission to love yourself. Then you can be of value to others. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Monica. We're going to I'm trying to block some stuff. I apologize.
Mhm.
Okay. I am going to um, open the floor for questions. If you have a question for Dr. Monica, if you can drop it in the chat, we'll be happy to answer it. I have her answer it and direct it to her. Um, I got a text, Dr. Monica, and they are asking this question. Um, how do we move past some of the wounds, and where do we find that in your book?
How do you move past the wounds? First and foremost, it's a choice. You have the power and the control to choose. Sometimes we're looking for others to solve our problems. Sometimes we're looking for institutions to solve our problems. Look within. Look within. I had to look within. Sometimes you have to be alone. Look at whatever the wounds are, whatever those wounds are. Take time to analyze those. One of the things I did was I taught critical thinking and problem solving at the university level for about 10 years. Get a piece of paper out. Write how that wound, or talk about that wound. What is that wound first and foremost? What is the wound? Not what you think it is, but what is the wound? What caused the wound? Ask the who, what, when, why, where of that wound. Now, look at those things and say, what do you do? What can you do? Not what can someone else do, but what can you do to eliminate that or move past that? One of the things we have to do is you can't control anything that somebody else does or say. However, you can set your boundaries. Sometimes you have to walk away. Mm-hmm. You heard me talk about my family. I'm 90 some percent estranged from my family. That wasn't easy, but it was hurting me. I was losing weight. My hair was coming out. I couldn't function. I'm physically sick. I don't like those things. So, how do I eliminate and get rid of those things? I have to walk away and accept the things that I can't change. Think about the serenity prayer. Lord, grant me I got it in my book. The courage,
Mm-hmm.
the courage to accept the things that I can't not change, and wisdom to change the things that I can. So again, focus on the things that you and you alone with God that you think you can change. It's not easy to look at others and see the pain that they've caused you, but guess what? They've moved on. They're not holding on to it. It is a choice. Now, let me say this. The pain may not ever totally subside and go away. But what you have to do is break away from that deliberating pain, that pain that keeps you from functioning, that pain that's causing you internal stress. Find healthy avenues to release, whether it's a walk on the beach, whether it's a reading book. Also give yourself time to wallow in that wound. You know, if it's 10 minutes, set a timer to think about it and move on. Only allow it a certain amount of time in your day. You have 10 minutes to think about that wound. Okay. Tomorrow it's 9 minutes. Next day is 8 minutes until it gets down to 1 minute. Then it would kind of disappear. But you have to take control and set boundaries of what you don't want that's hurting you. So hopefully that helped.
All right, I'm sure it did. Also, let me see if I can. Here I am. I want to thank you for that. Also, I do want to clarify. And I appreciate you sharing your story. I'm trying to get to where I'm at. There we go. Um, we want to also promote relationship with God, and I appreciate um, the mention. The Word of God says in John chapter 14:27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives, but not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." Um, I know that um, wounds, especially open wounds,
Mhm.
can be very detrimental to one's physical and spiritual well being. And I think we have to be more careful how we treat one another, so that we don't be um, the wounded warriors causing more wounds and then pouring salt into those wounds.
Correct.
I think it's important that we exercise the wisdom that God has given us, because as you stated, he gave us this, but he also gave us this.
Yes.
And we should have a heart for God's people, so that the next person can learn and not carry those wounds.
Yes.
We appreciate your candor. We appreciate you sharing your testimony. A lot of times, many people don't want to share their testimony because they consider it personal. But we want people to understand that, you know, when we have wounds, if we gain wisdom from it, there are those that will walk alongside you. And we at Wise Women Worshiping want to encourage and support women in ministry and women who are hurting, for that matter. So I appreciate your testimony. I appreciate your candor. And Dr. Monica, if you would like to tell them where they can purchase your book, if you want to do that, please take a few moments and do that.
If you would like to get a copy of Wounds of Wisdom, you can go on my website, which is drmonicajackson.com and /books, and you can purchase it there. You will also notice there is a link to Wholeness Academy, and those are um, courses that I offer. There's 7 courses for each chapter of the book: overcoming friends wounds, overcoming workplace wounds, overcoming family wounds, church wounds, overcoming business wounds, and overcoming children's wounds. So there's a specific model that I use to try to get you to analyze your pain, and then actually you set a plan that will help you through those pains. So you can check out some of those as well on the website, drmonicajackson.com.
Dr. Monica, we have a few more minutes. Um, I'd like to hear a little bit more about Wholeness Academy.
um, well, by trade, I started off in computer science, and my business now, I provide instructional design services to businesses and universities, and also teach. So I develop curriculum and trainings for those institutions. And as a result, I developed Wholeness Academy that will help people through their wounds. And, I did a survey. I want to say I did a survey on Facebook about a year ago. And then I repeated that survey to see which courses I should launch first, because in what was the top courses. And the number one course that everyone wanted was overcoming church wounds. The second course
Mm-hmm.
was overcoming family wounds.
Mm-hmm.
That spoke volumes to me, because as I said, to go through those things, and you have so many people who are still hurting and wounded, in the places that should give you solace and peace, there's opportunities for many things to occur in those areas. I believe that when our churches are healed, our families are healed, we can make a major impact on the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we need to start.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear about that. It's been very informative. Um, if there's anyone else that would like to ask a question, we will be on for another couple of minutes. And uh, while we have Dr. Monica here to answer any of those questions, go read the book. Read the book. I was very honest with Dr. Monica. I started reading it and I could relate to some, but I didn't get a chance to finish it. Now I'm really eager to finish the book. And so we want to make sure, and Dr. Monica, we really appreciate you. And we also want you to know that we at Wise Women Worshiping will listen if you call us. We will pick up the phone
Thank you.
and we will listen so that you don't have to worry about that being the norm.
All right.
Um, our goal is to encourage and to uplift, especially those who God has gifted with many talents, and sometimes people will take advantage of those things. One of my sisters in Wise Women Worshiping came to my aid when I was wounded
Mm.
and when I was going through some of those wounds. And so it's important that we have somebody that will walk with us and will help us and will talk us through some of the things that we go through. And so if you are wondering why, I'm sorry, if you are wondering why there are so many people who are hurting, is because they think it's personal and they don't really open up. But if you have somebody that will just sit there and listen, and this person came to my defense, and I never expected that, but it encouraged me and it let me know that God was at work, not only on my behalf, but in the person that he sent to help guard my heart.
Yes.
And so we at Wise Women Worshiping don't have a problem helping you guard your heart
Correct.
as God uses you to do what he has called you to do.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. And anybody that's listening also,
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they reach out as well, because I think I see some names in the chat that I recognize too. And we've actually spoken about things, and it's refreshing to find someone who will talk through those wounds, be authentic about it, and there's no judgment, because that's how we heal. And once we're healed, then we can kind of execute the things that need to be executed to help others. So I thank you for your interest in my book. I thank you for the platform to share, and I encourage and hope others begin their healing process in their journey so they don't have to be debilitated by the hurts of life.
Very, very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Monica. And thank you, listening audience. We at Wise Women Worshiping are a group of ordinary women doing extraordinary things um, as we are led, and we know that the church is the people. And so, people, let's reach out and love as God is love. And so, we hope to bring you our next summer series, informational summer series in September. This is our kickoff. We will probably do it seasonally because God has given us this platform where we can speak to the needs and speak to the hurts, speak to encourage those who need it. So We are, if you want to leave us a message, you can go to www.wisewomenworshiping.org. That is worshiping with one P. So we'll be happy to answer any other questions that you have. If you're interested in any information about us, we have a phenomenal group of professional, educated, and I don't want to use the word spiritual, but what I will say is they are women with close relationships to God. And so we'll be happy to encourage you and speak to you. So, once again, Dr. Monica, thank you so much
Thank you.
for being our guest this afternoon. And we hope that they will buy your book and they will be encouraged by your book,
Yes.
and that you will continue to be used by God as He gives you the tools needed to help people heal
Yes.
from their wounds
Correct.
and gain wisdom
Yes.
as they heal.
Yes.
All right. That is our broadcast for this afternoon. Once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us at Wise Women Worshiping.